What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you some first impressions for Slitterhead, an action-adventure title that launched just yesterday from the time of this video that puts us in the role of a Hyoki, or a spirit who can possess people in order to track down and eliminate these brain-sucking monsters known as Slitterheads. This game first made it onto my radar a while back at one of the game shows, I forget which one, but I saw a trailer for it and thought it looked really interesting, so I knew it was one of the games I was definitely going to check out this year. With that in mind though, I did not get a review key for this one. I bought it, paid the $45 for it, it's on a small launch discount, base price is $50, so I could check it out and review it, of course. Now, first impressions wise, I will say that the jank is very real. This is definitely not a AAA title by any means. In fact, I would say it suffers from some small technical issues. For instance, it shows Xbox control displays right away, even if you're on PC, so you have to go into the settings and switch the displays there. It's also made in Unreal Engine and has some of that textbook stutter that tends to go along with that, and there's certainly a fair bit of jank to go around as well. Not to mention a couple of other little problems that we'll get into momentarily, but let's talk about what this game is. Now, story-wise, I'm not sure where this game will wind up going, but as I mentioned, we play a spirit that is possessing people in order to track down these monsters. This puts us into contact with what they call rarities. Rarities are effectively humans who have an extremely good potential to be possessed by this spirit, meaning that they don't completely lose themselves like normal humans do. And in fact, the sort of symbiosis between them and the spirit empowers both of you, meaning that you can perform special attacks and just generally be more useful while we track these monsters down. Now, in service of all that, I do have to say this is a very sort of rated R, gory type of game, and while I'm going to avoid showing a lot of that stuff, or at least the worst of it, I should say, it really does give the entire thing a sort of B-movie action flick style vibe that is honestly a pretty good time. Now, the game itself does appear to be mission-based, and each mission gives like an explorable area where we'll be tracking down one of these monsters by, of course, asking questions, looking into it, and hopefully unveiling who it actually is. Sometimes you'll have to chase them down, other times just through the events of the objectives, you'll be put into contact with them a little more easily than that. But what I like about this is that the exploration part of it does see you as the spirit going around possessing people in order to traverse the slums of Kowloon as we try to track these things down, and that seems to be the bulk of the gameplay. Now, after each mission, you will receive some skill points that allow you to upgrade your rarities in particular, making those specific characters stronger than they would normally be, improving their weapon types, their abilities, etc. With the rest of the game looking like it has a purely action-focused system, I would say, as exploration is mostly centered around tracking these things down on top of occasionally finding memory fragments that will give you access to the occasional skill and things like that. So traversal, possessing enemies, and of course fighting the Slitterheads make up the bulk of the game. Now, the combat seems pretty decent, but there's a fair bit of jank in there. I would say mostly this comes down to the deflect system in particular and how it makes fighting anything more than one enemy at a time a bit of a problem. So regardless of who you have possessed at the time, you'll be able to sort of guard or prime your character, and this allows you to then deflect an incoming attack, which is effectively a parry, and you do that enough times you can activate a slow time effect and get a bunch of hits in, which is a decent enough system. But the problem is when there's more than one enemy, you'll only get the notifications for the deflect timing against the enemy that you are currently locked onto, and all of the other ones don't give you any sort of warning, which means fighting more than one enemy at a time is usually just you getting battered repeatedly with attacks you can't really do anything about, which doesn't feel great, but otherwise the combat system 1v1 is pretty fun, especially with these more monstrous creatures. And I would be curious if the farther I get into the game, if there are any rarities or characters that we come into contact with that manage to alleviate that a bit. It's my understanding one of them has like a gun, for instance. That could make this whole thing a bit easier. Now, in between all that and the missions and stuff, you'll upgrade, as I mentioned, but also be able to talk to your various rarities, and doing that will actually sometimes unlock missions and whatnot, allowing you to track down and fight more of these things. And for the most part, that seems to be the bulk of what this game has to offer, which isn't necessarily a problem, mind you. I think a game like this can provide a certain unique experience that is worth it in its own right. But moving to review this title, I have a few questions in my mind. For starters, is this janky, more AA experience going to have enough content and things to do in order to justify its price tag of $50, which I imagine will be a bit of a non-starter for a lot of people, given the seemingly overall lack of polish. And will there be enough interesting characters and whatnot added to the game to make it feel like a really interesting experience? Now, right away, I would say that I kind of get like prototype vibes from it, especially with the way you can sort of possess and abandon human characters to much their detriment, I might add, as you can possess people, jump off buildings, and then sort of possess someone else right as they're about to die and completely abandon them as it stands. And while you can use these guys pretty disposably, even the civilians and other things you can possess have their moments, because they have their own set skills that can be of use to you as you try to worry about things like each individual living person's health bar that they have, as well as their overall durability in terms of the weapons that they have available. So there's some things to consider, is my point. And will this game have enough unique experiences to overcome the obvious, I would say, lack of technical polish? And the price tag is kind of what I'm going to be looking at as I move to review this one, which will unfortunately take me a little bit longer than I would have liked. I don't get the impression this is a terribly long game, and so the 100% won't probably take very long, but the issue is I'm actually going out of town this coming week, so there will be a few days where I don't actually get the ability to play this. So to that end, I am hoping that I will be able to get this review to you guys by next weekend, but we are going to have to play this one by ear for a little bit. As of right now, though, that is everything I have got to say on this one until I finish said review. But in the meantime, I hope you found this first look interesting. Do let me know what you think about this title down in the comment section below, especially if you're playing it for yourself. I'd love to hear about it, which of course means to like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. But regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.